In Genesis 27, Isaac is preparing to give his blessing to his firstborn son, Esau, as was customary. But this blessing wasn't just about material wealth. It was about the continuation of the divine covenant made with Abraham. This blessing was about positioning one son as the leader of the family and the recipient of God's covenantal promises. In the ancient world, a father's blessing carried immense weight. It wasn't just a gesture of affection. It was a spiritual act, one that conveyed divine favor, prosperity, and protection. The story of Jacob and Esau illustrates the dramatic consequences of deception and rivalry in the context of divine providence, showcasing how human failings can intersect with God's sovereign plans. Rebekah is fully aware of the significance of this blessing and knows that Esau, though the firstborn, is not spiritually fit to carry the weight of it. Because God had previously told her in Genesis 25:23 that the older will serve the younger. So Rebekah hatches a plan to deceive her husband Isaac into giving the blessing to Jacob. She prepares a meal that Isaac loves and dresses Jacob in Esau's clothes, even covering his hands and neck with goat skins to mimic the roughness of Esau's hair. Jacob, though reluctant, goes along with the scheme. The deception is successful. Isaac, despite his suspicion, blesses Jacob instead of Esau. The story of Jacob and Esau illustrates the dramatic consequences of deception and rivalry in the context of divine providence, showcasing how human failings can intersect with God's sovereign plans. The blessing, though taken by deceptive means, is part of God's greater plan. This brings us to one of the key theological lessons of the book of Genesis: divine providence. Even when human actions are flawed or even sinful, God's purposes remain sovereign. It's a reminder that our mistakes don't necessarily derail God's plan. He can use our failings to accomplish His greater purpose. The story of Jacob and Esau illustrates the dramatic consequences of deception and rivalry in the context of divine providence, showcasing how human failings can intersect with God's sovereign plans. Jacob's actions, however, are not without consequences. While God's sovereignty prevails, we see the moral ambiguity of Jacob's actions. His faith in God's promises was evident, but his methods were far from honest. This raises the question: how far can faith justify deceit? Jacob's decision to lie to his father and impersonate his brother is a clear act of deception. But faith, as this story illustrates, is not a free pass to compromise moral integrity. The story of Jacob and Esau illustrates the dramatic consequences of deception and rivalry in the context of divine providence, showcasing how human failings can intersect with God's sovereign plans. Esau, upon discovering the deception, is understandably furious. His anger leads to a desire for revenge, and he plans to kill Jacob. This causes Jacob to flee for his life, and he will be separated from his family for many years. The story of Esau and Jacob shows the consequences of wrongdoing. Even when God's will is accomplished, human actions still have real-life effects, such as broken relationships, pain, and loss. Esau's impulsive decision to sell his birthright earlier in Genesis 25 also plays into the story's unfolding tragedy. In his desperation for food, he traded his future for immediate satisfaction. Now, Esau's rashness and Jacob's deceit come together, marking a tragic chapter for both brothers. This rivalry between the brothers is a reflection of the intense competition that often arose in such contexts, where family, lineage, and inheritance were sacred. It wasn't just about a blessing, it was about the right to carry on the family's legacy. The story of Jacob and Esau illustrates the dramatic consequences of deception and rivalry in the context of divine providence, showcasing how human failings can intersect with God's sovereign plans. However, no matter the human failures or the deceit involved, God's plan cannot be thwarted. His purposes will always prevail. True faith is about trusting in God's promises, but it also requires integrity. Deception may seem like a shortcut, but it always comes with consequences. Hence, actions have consequences. Jacob's deception leads to years of hardship, and Esau's rashness causes him to lose his blessing. Nevertheless, despite the moral failings of the characters involved, God's grace is evident in his unwavering commitment to fulfill his promises. His ability to work through our mistakes is a testimony to his faithfulness.